For as happy-go-lucky as Pokemon likes to portray itself as on the surface, there is definitely a darker, more mysterious side to it the further you get into its games. With every new generation that comes along, they seem to always bring with them their own set of mysteries and secrets that still to this day refuse to be answered, and it's one of the things that makes the Pokemon games so fascinating. So today, I am going to be covering the biggest secrets from every Pokemon generation and or region, and discuss what exactly makes them so interesting and mysterious. Starting in Kanto, we have the curious case of Professor Oak and Agatha. While these two never share any screen time in the games, Agatha confirms that they once had a relationship of some sort when she claims that Professor Oak used to be handsome and tough, but now is just an old duff who fiddles around with his Pokedex. The fact that she refers to Oak as handsome suggests that there could have been a romantic relationship between the two at one point, but obviously they had some kind of falling out. The thing that makes this so mysterious is that despite such a significant role for two characters like this to take part in, it is never elaborated on further after this utterance. It's also been implied throughout the various Pokemon media that Professor Oak was once a really strong trainer in his own right, before effectively retiring to become a researcher and work on the Pokedex. Maybe this is what caused his falling out with Agatha, as we can clearly see that she is very much into battling Pokemon and has somewhat of an aggressive personality. As unlikely as it is that we'll ever learn more about the relationship between these two, what happened in their past, their upbringing, their relationship, and what caused their ultimate fallout is one of the classic unanswered Pokemon questions, and it's one I'm sure we'll speculate on for years to come. If there's one thing that could effectively be crowned king of unanswered Pokemon secrets and mysteries, it's the Unown and Ruins of Alph that come out of Johto. The Unown themselves are kind of an enigma, one form for every letter of the Latin alphabet and a clear, strong association with legendary Pokemon, despite seemingly not being legendary themselves. They even go so far as to have a relationship with the creator deity himself, Arceus, possibly being used by Arceus to help create the universe, but again, nothing is for certain. There's even the question of whether or not they're even from the Pokemon world at all, as they resemble letters of the Latin alphabet that doesn't seem to exist in the language of the Pokemon world, thanks to newer games depicting an official written language on signs and buildings throughout the games. With that said, could the Unown be some type of Pokemon from our own world? Could this maybe even classify it as an Ultra Beast in the world of Pokemon, since it hypothetically would come from another dimension? Whatever the case may be, their habitat of the Ruins of Alph doesn't make things clearer by any stretch either, as they are just as mysterious. There isn't really anything that explains or alludes to their backstory at all, although it seems to be clear that they are what's left of a since long forgotten civilization. All things considered, the Unown remain as one of the most important figures within the Pokemon world's lore, but there is still so much we don't even know about them, and it's unknown if we'll ever learn more. Coming from Hoenn is a secret that has more recently surfaced within the last few years, and that would be of the Draconids and Zinnia's Wishmer known as Aster. All these characters debuted in the Delta episode of Omega Ruby and Alpha Sapphire, and while Zinnia herself cleared up some things regarding how the Pokemon timeline works, she also brought with her some mysteries of her own. Zinnia is a member of the Draconid people, a tribe of dragon users that worship the legendary Rayquaza. They lived within Meteor Falls and even built the Sky Pillar in honor of Rayquaza after it quelled the fighting between Groudon and Kyogre. In the present day, however, the tribe seems to be all but extinct, as the only known members are Zinnia and her grandmother. So what happened to them exactly? Well, it's possible that at some point they could have actually moved to Johto and became what is now the Dragon Tamer clan, since the two groups share many similarities, and the leader of the Dragon Tamer clan can also be seen wearing a helmet with a Rayquaza on it in the manga. But if that is indeed the case, why would they move to Johto if they worshipped Rayquaza, who resides in Hoenn? Another secret that this group holds is that of the identity of the one who is known as Aster. In the games, Aster is the name of Zinnia's Wishmer, but based on the way she talks to it, it's obvious that the name originated from someone else who was very close to her, and is implied to have passed away. One thing that does clear up a little bit of the mystery comes from an interview with Shigeru Omori, where he stated that Aster was the lore keeper prior to Zinnia and had special powers, but this still leaves many questions unanswered. What relationship did Aster have to Zinnia? Was she her friend, her mother, someone else? And how did she die? Could it be related to the apparent extinction of the rest of the Draconids? As much as I'm sure we'd all like to know, this one is likely to remain a secret, unfortunately, as I don't think we'll be returning to Hoenn in a new game anytime soon. Meanwhile, when Sinnoh was introduced in Generation 4, it brought with it what is probably the largest amount of lore we have ever seen from one set of games, as it revealed the creation and origin of the Pokemon world itself, as well as the entire universe. However, ironically enough, the biggest secret from this generation technically doesn't even originate from Sinnoh, but rather somewhere outside its borders, and that would be the Sinjoh Ruins. The Sinjoh Ruins are a largely inaccessible location that can only be traveled to by bringing Arceus to the ruins of Alph. They reside outside the range of every currently known region, and the only thing that we truly know about them is that they were created long ago by people from Sinnoh and Johto coming together in the location. It can be assumed that it resides somewhere in the middle of the two regions, but the only thing we know for sure is that it sits somewhere north of Johto. As a blend of the two regions, the ruins have a connection to both Arceus and the Unown, and the two seem to have some direct connection with each other, as well as the Unown assist Arceus in creating another one of the creation trio once it steps onto the mystery stage, which is a whole other mysterious factor in and of itself. So, who are these groups who built the Sinjoh Ruins in the first place? Why did they come together? What, if any, region do they reside in, and will we ever get to travel to this region or to the Sinjoh Ruins ever again? And how exactly do Arceus and the Unown relate to each other? It's been theorized that the Unown are the 1,000 arms that the Pokédex states Arceus used to create the universe, and that Unown could even be the fabric of the universe, so to speak, that holds it all together. As fascinating as the Sinjoh Ruins are, however, they really just brought about more questions than answers with their introduction, and I can only hope we'll be able to go there again someday and hopefully solve some of these mysteries. Moving into Unova, the biggest kept secret from this region is also one of the most interesting within the Pokemon world in general, and that would be the identity of the original dragon. The original dragon was once a legendary dragon Pokemon that resided in Unova, but was unfortunately split into 3 parts after the twin heroes of Truth and Ideals could not decide what to pursue, and as a result, Reshiram and Zekrom were formed, with Reshiram following the hero of Truth and Zekrom following the hero of Ideals, and Kyurem being left behind as an empty husk of this former Pokemon. Anytime an unseen Pokemon like this is mentioned, it brings with it an intense amount of intrigue, as any never-before-seen Pokemon are inherently extremely fascinating, and one that was once the combination of 3 different Pokemon, let alone legendaries, is incredible to even think about. This Pokemon would have been extremely powerful, as even in thirds, the pieces that made it up are incredibly strong in their own right. Appearance-wise, we can somewhat assume what it would have looked like, as it likely would just be a combination of Reshiram, Zekrom, and Kyurem's designs, similar to what happens with both Kyurem Black and Kyurem White, although it likely would have somewhat of a unique appearance as well. The most intriguing thing when it comes to this Pokemon, however, is how just out of reach it is. It's not often that we get confirmation of an official Pokemon that we never get to see, let alone one that we get to see what's left of it. It's a so close yet so far type of scenario that I can only hope we will be able to see in its entirety someday. I'm personally optimistic that if Black and White remakes ever happen, which they probably will at some point, that it could happen then, since it would be the perfect opportunity, but until that day comes, if it does at all, this one will continue to remain an elusive secret. When it comes to Kalos, there are a lot of secrets and unanswered things that come out of this generation, so it's really hard to nail down just one. In fact, before I get into my main point about this gen, I wanted to bring up the infamous Lumiose Ghost Girl. I'm pretty sure you know what this is already, but in case you need a refresher, within one of Lumiose City's many buildings, if you go up to the upper floor, a strange sequence will begin to play out, where the lights flicker on and off, and then a girl appears out of nowhere, floats across the floor around you, and says, "No, you're not the one, before floating away and everything going back to normal. Easily the strangest and most random event to ever happen in a Pokemon game in my opinion. It's also extremely cryptic as well. Like, sure, you can put random things for random's sake within a game, but you don't exactly put something this haunting within a Pokemon game of all things without it meaning something. To this date though, we still have no idea what it's truly all about. Be it in reference to something within the story or related to the developers themselves, there has been no indication at all what this was supposed to be about, leaving it as one of the strangest instances in Pokemon history. With that out of the way though, the real thing I wanted to get into with Kalos that's a pretty big secret at this point is what was the original plan for this generation, and why did it end up so fragmented upon release? Anyone who plays Pokemon X and Y will easily be able to see that despite being great games, there are clearly some things here that went unfinished. From the unused Kalos power plant to the unused Koroway Town train station to Zygarde to the Eternal Flower Floette, it's plain to see that much more was planned for these games than what we ultimately got. My question, however, is what and why? What was the plan for Zygarde within Kalos? What was behind those locked power plant doors? What role was the Eternal Flower Floette going to play as an obtainable Pokemon? How would it have affected the final plot of the games? And why did all of this have to be pushed to the side? One can say it was probably due to time constraints of some kind, what with the next generation after coinciding with the 20th anniversary of the franchise, there was probably a little more pressure there, but even still, the game still fits pretty neatly within Game Freak's pretty tried and true 3-year time frame for new Pokemon generations, so why did this one in particular feel so incomplete? Maybe with them being the first 3D Pokemon games, the ambition for the project reached a level that simply couldn't be achieved with the resources they had, and if true, that's somewhat understandable. But with Kalos being one of my favorite regions and X and Y some of my favorite games, these have always been questions I've been dying to know the answers to. And finally, we reach Alola, the latest officially released region as of the recording of this video. Now, I'm not gonna lie, it was a bit interesting to pick a secret for this video from Gen 7's offerings, but it is not without its share of intrigue either, and that intrigue comes in the form of Wally. This one is pretty commonly discussed, but basically, despite the fact that Sun and Moon are currently the latest games in the Pokemon timeline, known to have taken place well after Red and Blue, and several years after Black and White and X and Y, thanks to the appearances of various characters from those games, one returning character seems to have not aged a day, and that's Wally. This is particularly peculiar due to the fact that Wally comes from the Hoenn-based games, which take place at the same time as Pokemon Red and Blue, and with the titular characters of those games being much older, most likely in their 20s, one would assume, thanks to the laws of physics, that Wally would be much older himself, but nope, he still looks the same age as he does in Ruby and Sapphire and their remakes. As much as I would like to offer an explanation for this one, there really isn't a whole lot that can be said, unfortunately. The only reasonable explanation that comes to mind is that he could be a faller, but with Annabelle from the same set of games also being a faller and also being much older, that explanation doesn't really hold much water. Wally also doesn't play a super significant role in the games, only being a contestant in the battle tree, but then again, that is also the case for Red and Blue, who again are much older. Outside of Game Freak straight up forgetting to age him, which I highly doubt, it feels like there would need to be a reason for this to be happening, but as is the theme here, there really is no answer in sight, and this remains to be one of the biggest secrets from the Alola region. Well, there you have it everyone. If you enjoyed, make sure to leave a like and let me know if you have any thoughts or possible answers to these secrets in the comments below. Also, make sure to subscribe if you're new, and once again, if you haven't seen it yet, make sure to check out the trailer of my latest and greatest project on the channel, Pokemon Cardinal. I also just launched a collection of merch over on TeePublic, including 2 really nice shirt designs and a poster for Pokemon Cardinal as well, which I am really excited about, so go pick something up with the link in the description and support the channel at the same time. With all that being said though, I'll be back on Tuesday with another video, so until then, as always, I love you all, and I will smell you guys later.